right, ladies and gentlemen, we made it. We finally made it 7 days later for episode 2. I know everyone has been waiting with such impatience, for the follow-up to the introduction of Puck and Roll. Patrick Lortie here, being your gracious host, and we have quite the show today. A little controversial, may I even add. Now, I am very glad to present my distinguished panel of guests. Elias, Laradi, our insider, is here. Sebastian, hi. Scott, Cowan, Joshua, Rosa as well. Maria Buabdo, unfortunately, not with us today. Here in spirit, of course. We're going to say hello to Maria. Hope you're having a good one. Now, I am not going to mess around. I am going to be very, very direct. I am going to call out our insider, as a matter of fact, Mr. Elias. How are you today?
Good, yourself?
I am very good. Now, the reason why I am challenging you today, sir, to this duel, along with the rest of the panel that I'm sure are going to be jumping over the board, creating havoc, and a general fight will probably ensue, is that we were having a conversation off air, and you made a declaration, and you mentioned that, and you actually meant this. This is what is a little whack about this whole situation. You mean this. You are predicting that next season, the 21-22 season, the Montreal Canadiens will not make the playoffs. Now, I heard that properly, right? This is what you said. Your own words. The Canadiens will not make the playoffs. What are you smoking? Where can I get some? And is it legal?
That's actually a great question. No, it's not. And they lost Phil Deneau, who was their number one center. I feel even though they have a lot of depth, it's a lot of fourth line depth that I feel won't be able to come up to the challenge. Again, you're in the Atlantic. It's an 82-game season. You have Austin Matthews. You have Brady Tkachuk. You have Tampa Bay. You have Florida's coming up. You have all these amazing teams. And I just don't feel like Montreal has it.
Yeah, but let me interfere right off the bat. Now, you mentioned Toronto. We beat Toronto. Okay, like unless like my like I'm living in another dimension, we beat Toronto in the first lap.
Yeah, but that was because Deneau was doing a great job shutting down Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, and all that.
Yeah, but here comes the $5.5 million question, pun intended. Is Phil Deneau a first line center? In my opinion, I don't think he is. I mean, he's an excellent defensive forward. He is, maybe a notch under the elite status along, the Patrice Bergerons of this world and Barkov in Florida as well. But I mean, he's not an elite player just yet. This is not a guy you could say, okay, you know what, 25 minutes a game, it's all yours. You're going to go on the power play, you're going to go on the PK, you could do everything. And he's going to give you 30 goals, 80 points a year. That's not going to happen, man. I mean, that's not Phil Deneau.
No, I definitely agree. Phil Deneau is your typical defensive center guy. I agree with what you said. In Montreal, he was first line. If you put him anywhere else, he's maybe second, third line. I agree with that 100%. But I just felt that he helped Montreal a lot. And those are big shoes that I have to fill. And right now, like I said, on the depth chart, it's Nick Suzuki as your first line center. And that's going to be I think that's going to be pretty intimidating. Imagine going from a second line, going to a first line, going up against the top lines in the league, going playing against I think 31 teams. It's going to be a super, super tough ask. Now, again, like the Canadiens have time and time again, sometimes they prove me right, sometimes they prove me wrong. So this year, again, they're going to have to prove me wrong when they are not going to make the playoffs.
Like on the Nick Suzuki note, I'd argue that he already was Montreal's first line center last season. At least in the playoffs, 100%, he had the most minutes.
Oh, even year round, like the chemistry he was forming with Tyler Toffoli was just bar none.
I feel like the loss of Phil Deneau is less about losing a first line center, because I don't think he was Montreal's first line center, and he certainly won't be the first line center in LA. It's more about the loss of that role, that insulating role that frees Suzuki up for those offensive minutes. So even though Suzuki was the first line center, he wasn't necessarily having the most difficult matchups. And we saw, like in the Tampa Bay series, John Cooper did a great job when Tampa was at home of matching the Braden Point line to the Suzuki line, and that didn't turn out great for the first two games. So I think it's more important of finding a center, either like within the organization or from outside, to take on not necessarily the Phil Deneau role, but like the Phil Deneau defensive minutes and defensive faceoffs. So Jake Evans is the only person in the organization that I think can take on that role this season. But you can also look outside and bring someone in, like Tyler Bozak could be an option because he's like a 55% faceoff guy. So you can send him out like just to win the important draws that Deneau did, because like I love Suzuki, I love Kakamiemi, I love Evans. None of them are on the level of Deneau in terms of faceoffs. And you saw how much faceoffs hurt Montreal, especially in the Vegas series.
Yeah.
That was painful to watch. And a lot of those even came against Deneau, and even he couldn't like win all of them, obviously. And like, I know faceoffs I do think are a bit overrated, but at the same time, you can't have a team go 40% in the faceoff dot. And right now the team would, I think. So
okay, so before I send it to somebody else, Sebastian, can you just elaborate just a little bit on that? You just said you think faceoffs are a little overrated, but we can't have a 40% win ratio either. So I mean, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by the faceoffs are overrated?
Okay, what I mean by that is that like I think that the importance put on being over 50% is overrated. I don't think there's a real difference between a 52 and a 48% faceoff guy. If you win around half, I think it's fine. If as a collective you're consistently losing like 60% of the draws, it also gives opposition the opportunity to really like develop set plays and use them on like defensive zone faceoffs. So exactly what Vegas did against Montreal.
True, yeah. But let me interrupt you though. You got Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals. You are in the offensive zone. You're down by 1. There's 15 seconds left. You pulled your goalie. You're telling me that it doesn't matter who takes the faceoff.
I'm not saying it doesn't matter who takes it. I'm saying that if you look at the grand scope of a season,
right,
and like the minute differences between like, because like what Phil knows, like what, a 54% faceoff guy, like Scott, if you can look up,
I'll get that up, sure.
Yeah, because like he's not like the most dominant faceoff guy in the league. He just like takes the most faceoffs in the league. At least he did with Montreal. And I think it would be good to have an insulating player on like the third or fourth line that can get those important draws. But I don't think that relying on Suzuki and Kakamiemi for a lot of faceoffs in the season and then going like 45% is going to be the end of the world.
Well, I think like I agree with you there, Sebastian, on your point about that stuff a bit. And I also say that going back to what you said, Deneau is a 54% or 53.8 to be specific face-off percent guy over his career in Montreal, which is pretty solid numbers to say the least. And I feel like actually one of the guys who's been the most impacted by this whole Deneau departure thing is Cedric Paquette, because people have been kind of comparing Paquette to Deneau in terms of, Montreal brought in Paquette to replace him, which just isn't the case in my own opinion. I think Cedric Paquette is a perfectly serviceable, like if you Google fourth line center in the dictionary, you'll find a big picture of Cedric Paquette. He's about as standard as they come when it comes to just finding a guy like that. And I feel like while losing, the thing about Philip Deneau that just a lot of people will mention is that in the playoffs, Montreal saw a very different Philip Deneau as compared to what they had seen in previous seasons. Deneau was probably at the top of his game defensively and managed to stop star players in a way that he had never done before. He completely silenced Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner in the Leafs series. You can say not single-handedly, but still, he had a major impact in silencing those players. Over an 82-game schedule for late next season, who's to know if he'll be able to replicate that?
We could talk about Deneau for the rest of the evening and whatnot, but the point here is that we're ganging up on our friend Mr. Laradi here. Josh, as a matter of fact, I know you're a fan of the Mike Hoffman signature. You had mentioned that he is an upgrade on Tatar, and I know you wanted to explain why and everything. But your take, I mean, what do you think? Are the Habs making the playoffs or not? Just be straight up with me.
It's going to be tough. I think it's going to be close, but they've definitely got a chance. And I think they got a better chance than last year simply from two factors that they didn't have on the team last year, well, most of last year, which is Mike Hoffman and Cole Caulfield. And I think where you're really going to see that shine is the new power play that they're going to put together. I think we're going to be done with the days of, we lost in a shootout or overtime or one goal if only one of our four power plays converted. We've got a scary looking power play if they could make it click together. You got Toffoli, Hoffman, and Caulfield, who are all just going to score goals. And even Caulfield, if you look at the series winner against Winnipeg, he could dish it out pretty good. And then you got the true double threat in Nick Suzuki, who could shoot the puck from the dots and score as he did multiple times last year and pass great. It's hard to cover him. And then Jeff Petrie at the line, who can skate, shoot, pass. He could do it all. It's going to be really tough for teams to really stop that. And I think that's going to add another 5 wins possibly into the year.
That was also the reason why they signed Mike Hoffman in the first place, correct? Like the fact that he's basically a power play specialist. And today we found out that Thomas Tatar signed with the New Jersey Devils on a 2-year deal worth $9 million. So the same AAV as Mike Hoffman on a year less. So a lot of people are saying, well, there's similar players in there and whatnot, but you don't think so, right? You're saying that Hoffman is actually an upgrade.
He's an upgrade in certain areas. Like, he's got one of the best shots in the league just for his ability to beat goalies, and he's great on the power play, which is where Montreal really needs it. Tatar is not really a power play guy. He never played too much on the power play and impacted very much that I can remember in Montreal. But he also helps with the playoffs. Tatar is completely invisible. I don't know if anyone really noticed that he was gone for most of the playoffs this year because he ended up with, I think, 1 point this year.
Has he ever showed up in the playoffs, even in Detroit or Vegas for that matter?
No.
Exactly. He was benched when he was in Vegas, for crying out loud.
Well, the thing that's funny about Tatar actually with Vegas is that not only was he benched in Vegas, he played underneath Gerald Gallant, who is a head coach who has always not particularly been a fan of guys like Tatar, who, when the game steps up, just get overly soft. Gallant has always been kind of a Terry Crisp, work your butt off, you get playing time kind of coach. So yeah,
absolutely. And I think we're starting to see a similar formula with Dom Ducharme as well, which is something we're going to cover at some point. But Elias, you're starting to be ganged up, buddy. I mean, like the general consensus is that the power play is a lot better. And this is a league where your special units will win a hockey game for you. It's no longer just one guy who's going to, win the whole thing now. I mean, it's a collective effort. And, and I don't know about you, but I mean, I'm not worried at all at the fact that Shea Weber is not with us, because he wasn't that big a factor on the penalty kill to begin with, and even with Danault, because, you had guys like Evans who did a great job. Lehkonen did a great job. Suzuki was showing a lot of effort as well. And, the $10.5 million question was Carey Price, whether he can stay healthy or not. Who gives a damn if he can stay healthy or not? We got Jake Allen as a backup for like what, $2.5 million, I think now. He actually took a pay cut to stay in Montreal. So yeah, thank you. So Elias, I don't know, man. This doesn't look like a team who's going to miss the playoffs that easily.
Well, I think also a big factor that has plagued Montreal a lot is consistency. Like, if they want to make the playoffs, they're going to have consistent, 20-goal scores. Like, Toffoli's going to have to score 25 goals. Hoffman's going to have to score 25 goals. Caulfield, he might have a big season. You never know. Nick Suzuki's going to have to have a big season. We've seen spells of what they do where they score maybe 10, 15 goals in a short span, and for 10, 15 games, they disappear. So really, it's also another factor. They need to be consistent goal scorers. Like every game, they should be scoring consistently. That's what I feel as well. Because, again, one of the problems that was plaguing Montreal was lack of scoring, and, they're losing these 1-goal games and, OT shootout. They're going to need to be super consistent again. An 82-game season, or the toughest division in the NHL, the Atlantic.
Yeah, okay. I do agree on, and Scott, I'll send it over to you right after. I do agree on the fact that the Atlantic is going to be, from top to bottom, it's going to be a tough division. I mean, even the Ottawa Senators, for that matter, might actually cause us